one yesterday where we actually read the Bill of Rights, okay, and the Declaration of Independence before that, and we're connecting the dots, okay? And then we're going to move to the Constitution as well. So a lot of great things going on, so do not want to miss this. And wait till we get to 27. Amendment 27 is very interesting. We might spend the most time on that. We'll see. It's really an interesting thing that was done in the last amendment to the Constitution and how long it took to get it done. Today's a big show. Do not miss it. We'll see you in a minute. Hey, welcome back to the show, folks. A lot of stuff going on. Very, very crazy world out there, no doubt about that. And the thing that separates us from the rest of the world, and quite frankly, I don't want to say arguments, but some debates right now on some of the articles that are on CraigBouchon.com, where people from are pushing back a little bit on people from Australia, people from France, people in Europe, basically all around through Europe as well, saying, oh my gosh, if we became a republic, we would be destroyed. I mean, think about that. If they became a representative republic, they would be destroyed. These people, it's unfortunate, but it is. You can see how they got there. Even Australia, you can see through COVID. I think it was in 1996, they gave up their guns. And then you can see that's not working out well either. But anyway, today, exciting day. Eric Thompson, producer extraordinaire. How are you?
Doing well, thank you. You can't wait to get to 27.
We can't wait to get to 27. And it's interesting because this is what separates us, folks. Like I said a minute ago, there's people in other countries that do not understand what we are as a republic. There are many republics or places that call themselves republics that are really dictatorships. Top down, top down. People down here, power at the top. We are a democratically elected representative republic. We are different. We have 27 amendments to the Constitution, and that's why you tune into the show. We try to break it down. We explain it to you. Simplify something that, quite frankly, is supposed to be simple. But because we have politicians that have muddied the water and they circumvent the Constitution, some would argue that we are in post-constitutional times today. Just look at our border, for example. Just what happened through COVID and the mask mandates, the shot mandates, and they ended up being completely wrong. And look at the damage that they've done. People need to be held accountable for that. And we can do that through our judicial system if we can instill a real judicial system and not this weaponized one we have right now. But more about that later. Okay, so here we go. We got it pulled up, Eric. I think are you good? We're gonna. Yep. I'm gonna go right. We're gonna be Amendment 11, folks.
Okay, here we go.
All right. So, Amendment 11. Now, there's a note to Amendment 11. March 4th, 1794, ratified February 7th, 1795. So the note, Article 3, Section 2 of the Constitution was modified by Amendment 11. The judicial power of the United States shall not construe to extend to any suit in law or equity, commenced or prosecuted against one of the United States by citizens of another state or by citizens or subjects of any foreign state. So dividing, getting some protections, okay? Borders mean something, You have to, if somebody, if you saw it happen with Trump, right? Trump's at Mar-a-Lago. He's indicted in New York, and he has to be, and of course DeSantis, he's trying to play good guy, and oh my gosh, it's so bad what's happening to Trump. He said maybe twice, and that I may not allow him to be extradited out of the state. We're not going to allow them to come in. So there are protections on every border. Okay, not on our national border. Specifically, south border on Mexico, but every state has its own sovereignty as well. So here we go. Amendment 11 Now go to Amendment 12. This was passed December 9th, 1803, ratified June 15th, 1804. Note, a portion of Article 2, Section 1 of the Constitution was superseded by the 12th Amendment. The electors shall meet in their respective states and vote by ballot for president and vice president, one of whom at least shall not be an inhabitant of the same state with themselves. They shall name in their ballots the person voted for a president, and in distinct ballots the person voted for a vice president, and they shall make distinct lists of all persons voted for as president and of all persons voted for as vice president, and the number of votes for each, which is lists they shall sign and verify and transmit sealed to the seat of the government of the United States, directed to the president of the Senate. The president of the Senate shall, in the presence of the Senate and House of Representatives, open all the certificates, and the vote shall then be counted. You saw that, right? The big January 6th thing, right?
Yeah, I wanted to stop you there. So a couple of things that I think apply is that the discussion of Trump and DeSantis being on the same ticket is disqualifying here because they cannot be of the same state.
Right. There are some interesting challenges coming up, and that's why.
So even for people that want it, they're like, oh, a Trump DeSantis ticket. Well, when Trump left New York and moved his residency officially to Florida, that's not a possibility for the people watching. That's right. Trump and DeSantis cannot be on the same ticket constitutionally.
Yeah, and what's interesting, maybe that was a strategy on purpose. Maybe Trump was reading the tea leaves and made that move. Who knows? I mean, look, if you haven't read Art of the Deal with Trump, you could see he's very, very shrewd, and he's moving chess pieces. You want to win a chess, you got to be thinking several steps ahead. And most people don't. Most people, unfortunately, are playing checkers, and they're excited when they king themselves, but they have no chance on the chessboard. So, okay. So that's an interesting point, Eric, and there's no doubt about it that there might be something that coming up ahead where you're going to start hearing more and more about that. Obviously, the press is not here to educate people. Unfortunately, the main press is here just to get people excited, upset, mad, and their talking heads just bloviate and don't give you any real direct information. But that's why you're here, because that's what we do here in the show. So we're moving. We're still in Amendment 12. The person having the greatest number of votes for president shall be the president. If such number be a majority of the whole number of electors appointed, and if no person have such majority, then from the persons having the highest numbers, not exceeding 3 on the list of those voted for as president, the House of Representatives shall choose immediately by ballot the president. But in choosing the president, the vote shall be taken by states. The representation from each state having one vote. A quorum for this purpose shall consist of member or members from 2/3 of the states, and a majority of all the states shall be necessary to a choice. And if the House of Representatives shall not choose a president, whatever the right of the choice shall devolve upon them before the 4th day of March next following, then the vice president shall act as the president, as in case of the death or other constitutional disabilities of the president. The person having the greatest number of votes as vice president shall be the vice president. If such number be a majority of the whole number of electors appointed, and if no person have a majority, then from the 2 highest numbers on the list, the Senate shall choose the vice president. A quorum for the purpose shall consist of 2/3 of the whole number of senators, and the majority of the whole number shall be necessary to a choice. But no person constitutionally ineligible to the office of president shall be eligible to that of vice president of the United States, superseded by Section 3 of the 20th Amendment, which we will get to later. But that reminds me of what was happening when the head of the Senate, it was who? Was Mike Pence. And people, the people that were really upset about what happened in the election, they believed it was not a justified election. They believed there was a lot of fraud, and they really wanted to have this this meeting, and they wanted to move it to the states. They wanted Pence to do something to defend their liberty. And of course, then you saw what happened. You got all these triggers happening and people rushing into the Capitol. Many believe that it was because of they were on purpose. Some of the people in there were there as plants. You saw people that are still in jail today. And how many years has it been? There's a lot of controversy around that last election. And there's still people paying the price, which we believe is breaking their constitutional rights that we covered yesterday on the show. And so that's why we have such tension today, because our government really hasn't done their job. And the enemy of liberty was afraid that they knew that people like Ted Cruz had their act together. They are scholars of the Constitution, and they were going to go in there and upset the apple cart. So something radical had to happen. Something very simple, similar, folks, to draw a line here. Donald Trump had our economy rocking and rolling. So guess what happened? Well, that can't stand. You cannot have a consistent, ongoing rock and roll, very, very profitable, very positive economy in the U.S. That must be stopped by people. There are corrupt people within our own government and within this country, and that are connected to outside sources. And all of a sudden, boop, Wuhan, right? Because look at what was happening, right? They used a weapon against us that brought us to where we're at today, that brought us there would have been no election, by the way. There would have been no chance. I shouldn't say there'd be no election. There'd be an election, but there'd be no chance for any Democrat to win if, and I hate to rehash this, but it's all connected to your liberty, if the Wuhan virus was not weaponized on the world. Fact. Donald Trump was using the power and the model of a true republic, a capitalist system that is by far the best system in the world, and all the assets that we have through the grace of God. He was using that as in our business model for the first time in a very, very long time, if ever, by the way, where he was flipping on all the switches to make you and I freer, more wealthy, and pushing us up to where we need to be as a leader of the free world, and not afraid of these tyrants in the CCP in Russia, in North America, Rocket Man, not afraid of them. So they knew, and this is all connecting the dots here, folks. The enemy knew that if Trump got reelected, folks, they were done. Done. So you had to have the Wuhan virus. And that brought us all of these things where you start seeing your Constitution being stepped on. So it not only stopped Trump, okay, it not only brought you a Fauci, it didn't only bring you these unconstitutional movements by the government, it also brought you the tearing down of your constitutional rights, okay, whether it was mass mandates, shots, or whatever. So what an amazing move. What a deep, deep move by the deep state / CCP, Russian, Marxists, call them what you want. They're the enemy. That is why I've said many times we are in World War III. And this is why when we say an oath, and that's why I talk about the oath, okay, at AmericaICan.com, the oath of office means something. It's supposed to mean something. It means something to me. It needs to mean something to them, and we have to hold them accountable. So I wanted to take that minute, kind of draw those dots, draw those lines and connect those dots, because this is a very, very long amendment. And the note in here is big, and look how long it is. So, I mean, Eric, does that make sense, or I need to explain it a different way? I was trying to connect, what's happened in the last 3 years to our amendments.
No, you are. It makes sense, and it's funny you stopped where I'd highlighted on the screen. The Republican Party does a terrible job in educating its people constitutionally, and I am as big a proponent of that election fraud took place in 2020. I believe it 100%. the mules, the whole thing, Dinesh. But constitutionally in Amendment 12, Mike Pence was there, the president of the Senate, the vice president, in this one specific direction from the Constitution gives him, there's no authority for him to reject what he counts. So he opens them up, he counts. There is no provision in the Constitution saying, now, if you, Vice President, think there's fraud in some of these states, you can reject them. It's not in here. Yet, if you talk to a lot of people in the Republican Party or online, MAGA supporters, they will insist that Pence had the constitutional authority to reject the electors. The states are the ones that voted in their individual electors and sent them up to be counted. So even though I'm 100% a believer that Trump was reelected and it was stolen, if we just read the plain language of the Constitution, I don't see where Pence had the authority.
Right, but let's also look at this part of it as well, where I can't remember. I think it was Ted Cruz that was in the middle of really upsetting the apple cart to bring it to another vote. Yep. And that's when all the hell broke loose. And so, because the Senate has the power to do it, the Senate with the House together, they bring it up, and they have to have a sponsor. Remember all that happening?
Right. Yeah, you can
have a sponsor, and they were in the middle of doing that, and they were succeeding. And then all hell broke loose. And then they went back to, well, I guess, look, bad things happen, folks. Rubber stamp it. Look, bad things happen. Rubber stamp it. No. Just because bad things happen and people freak out,
right?
You don't stop liberty. You can pause. Like it said, you could pause and the vice president would be president for a little while until they got it figured out. But no, that's not what happened. They got everybody freaked out, and they made a big to-do about it. And they remember Saul Alinsky's rules for radicals, let any tragedy go to waste. So they generate a tragedy, they make this tragedy happen, and all of a sudden, boom, your liberty is gone. That's the problem. The problem is they rubber stamped it after that. Oh, let's all go back in. My God, Rome is burning.
Yep.
And let's just rubber stamp it. That's the problem, Eric. That's where it went bad. They should have paused, waited. I don't care if it took 1, 2, 3, 4 days, and then they should have written right back to where they were, but they didn't.
Right. So what happened was Cruz was leading a group that was challenging the electors from certain states. It wasn't Pence.
Right.
Pence's job was to count whatever they gave him in the end. And so I'm not a Mike Pence supporter anymore. I was at one time. I thought he was a good VP, but right now I still there's still people going, Pence should have stopped, should have not read or accepted the delegates, and he doesn't. Constitutionally, which is what we're going through, the Bill of Rights, he didn't have that authority to say,
right.
Because what if he did? What if the vice president in every election could say, I don't like what Alabama did. I'm going to throw those out. And I don't like what this state did. It would cause chaos if the vice president could reject the electors.
Absolutely. But let's also look at what didn't happen that should have happened. It should have reconvened, because remember, he's the head of the Senate. He should have said, okay, all right. Okay. We're going to do a timeout. We're going to get our wits about us. We're going to make sure everything's secure. We're going to deal with all this. We can adjourn, not adjourn, whatever. But we are going to pick up where we left off. That's what didn't happen. Right. That's the injustice, folks. Just because people do bad things in the middle of justice trying to be served on your behalf doesn't mean that they get to weaponize what they did against what that action, whatever happens, against your liberty. They never went back. That's the problem. And yes, Pence could have done that. Pence could have helped. Pence could have said, look, let's get back to where we were. That didn't happen. So yes, there's people out there that bloviate and say you could do some things, and that's fine. There's always going to be people out there that say we didn't land on the moon. There's people out there that are going to say that communism isn't really real. Electric cars are the greatest thing in the world. They're going to always have those. But let's go to the root of the issue. They did not go back and start re-up where they left off. That's a problem, folks, because now they could do anytime justice is about to come, you could do something, make some catastrophe happen, and then what? Rubber stamped it. Oh, forget it. Too bad. Man, I wish that didn't happen. We're really getting somewhere, but oh well, move on. So anyway, so now here we are. And that's what makes it tough, by the way, folks. And we, the people, have got to get people in office who are strong, okay, that care about your liberty, that will do just that. Make sure if something like that happened again, you're not going to take your eye off the ball. What are we doing here and why? Instead, they used fear, intimidation, and quite frankly, blew a lot of it out of proportion. And so your liberty was not able to move forward. So anyway, okay. Amendment 13, passed by Congress January 31st, 1865, ratified December 6, 1865. Note, portion of Article 4, Section 2 of the Constitution was superseded by the 13th Amendment. Section 1, neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as punishment for crime whereof the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction. Section 2, Congress shall have power to enforce this article by appropriate legislation. Amendment 14, Article 1, Section 2, this was in June 13th, 1866 is when it was passed by Congress and ratified June 9th, 1868. Section 1, all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without a due process of law, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the law. So what's interesting, there's two things I want to talk about here. First, let's go to something that's ridiculous. I think it was Amazon, Eric, if I remember right, where the guy was locked out of his house. He was deprived of his property. Okay.
Yeah.
He was deprived of getting into his own property by a company breaking his constitutional rights.
The Section 1 is interesting to me because I did some research on the birthright citizenship issue. When this was being argued, I think it was a senator from Michigan who sponsored this. In the debate on the floor, they said, well, what about people that are ambassadors from foreign nations if they have children here? What about, he goes, well, of course, their children wouldn't be considered citizens if they were born here because they're citizens and they are subjected to the jurisdiction of a foreign government. And they said, what about people in the country legally? Well, of course, that wouldn't apply because they are subject to the jurisdiction of the country they came from, but they didn't put it in writing.
Right.
He didn't put that language in here. So when it got passed, the assumption was that if you're from another country, you are subject to the jurisdiction of that government. You cannot be a citizen here. So your children cannot be citizens because your family are citizens of a foreign government. But yet, because of this written so poorly, we now have birthright citizenship destroying certain parts of our country.
It is the same way the separation of church and state has been totally miseducated to the citizens of this country. Like we've talked about on the show, if we look at the beginning of Section 1, all persons born or naturalized, which means what? It means they went through the process and they took the oath to be United States citizens, right? They came from another country, they went through the legal process, and they became citizens. So all persons born, so if you're born in the United States or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and the state wherein they reside. So it doesn't make sense that, and to your point, Eric, that it's poorly written, but it's also be reasonable that why would it matter if a person was naturalized if they were born in the state, it wouldn't. They just so you're just here and you're born into it. That's the confusion, folks. They believe they're weaponizing that. So that's why people run across the border and say, oh, and they're anchor babies, you hear, right? And all of a sudden, boom, they're born. And then now they are citizens. And then now all of a sudden you've got the family that, oh, you can't, now mom's got to come in, dad's got to come in, or whoever these people are, they got to come in. So it's a very, very complex issue. And then those who are naturalized, okay, in the United States, well, of course, they're naturalized. They took an oath. They're here. Of course, they're citizens. And you can't be uncitizened, if you will, very easily. It's very, very hard. So that's a part that you're going to see coming up. I think it needs to be a big conversation in the election coming up here. And I think that that's something that has to be changed. They must amend this section of the Constitution so it explains exactly what it's supposed to explain. Because I don't think they were thinking of it then what's happening today, that you would have your own president. They thought you would think, why did they not make it stronger? It was because people protected their borders. And people, their mind didn't go that way. They could never imagine back in the founding of this country that you would not protect your border, that you wouldn't protect your sovereignty. As hard as it was to get, why would you not protect it? But instead, look what's happened, right? It goes right back to what Benjamin Franklin said. We have given you a republic if you can keep it. Or you could say, if you can protect it. We have given you a republic if you can protect it. It's the same thing. And we're not protecting it. And that's why this 14th Amendment is coming a big deal, because we have people who swear they're going to uphold the Constitution, taking their oath, okay, and they're not doing it. So sovereignty is connected directly to the 14th Amendment. Sovereignty is I think the number one thing that the elected officials are supposed to do is protect the United States of America's sovereignty. That's not being done, and that's allowing the weakness, if you will, and it's really because of the weakness of the people not enforcing the border is allowing the weaponization of the 14th Amendment. Just that simple. And so now it's like, well, wait a minute. Since we won't protect the border, we have to now change this amendment and make it stronger. It's sad, but it's true.
Well, the one section that is just for people watching, and subject to the jurisdiction thereof, right, was the poorly written part. Because if he would have said, and who are not citizens of another government country, or are subjected to a foreign government as citizens, but to set this and subject to the jurisdiction of, people say, well, if you got in the country, you're a subject to the jurisdiction of the federal government of the United States because you're now in the country, which is why we extend now constitutional rights to illegal aliens, even though they are not citizens. So I just wanted to point this out, that this poorly written beginning to the 14th Amendment has caused a lot of consternation and problems with our nation, and has to be
interesting. It was never a problem 100 years ago.
Because everybody was on the same page, but now that we're divided, it is abused.
Well, and you think you could be divided, folks? Let's just say your house is divided. You have an argument with your wife, and then your wife, I guess your wife would go, well, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to piss you off, Craig. And I'm just kidding. My wife watches the show. But the reality is, just use this as an example. So what did I do? I've opened the door to let as many people come in the front door and sit on the couch, go in the refrigerator, and then they now are own part of the house. They now have the authority to be throughout the house. Huh? What? Wait, why? Because we don't agree. What does that have to do with our border? What does that do with sovereignty? These people, look, part of the war that we're in, folks, is people weaponizing some of the imperfections that are in the Constitution, because the Constitution had an assumption to it, going back to Benjamin Franklin. We have given you a republic if you can keep it. Also could mean if you can protect it, right? And we have not been. So that's where it gets us here. So Section 2 of Amendment 14, representatives shall be apportioned among the several states according to their respective numbers. counting the whole number of persons in each state, excluding Indians not taxed, but when the right to vote at any election for the choice of elector for the president and vice president of the United States, representatives in Congress, the executive and judicial officers of a state, or the members of the legislature thereof is denied to any of the male inhabitants of such state, being 21 years of age, there's an asterisk there, and citizens of the United States, or in any way abridged, except for participation in rebellion or other crime. The basis of representation therein shall be reduced in the proportion which the number of such male citizens shall bear to the whole number of male citizens 21 years of age in such state. That's interesting, isn't it?
Well, this is why Trump wanted non-citizens not counted in the census.
That's right.
Well, male citizens, but 21 years, but you have to be a citizen.
That's right.
You have to. So if you're not a citizen, you're not supposed to be counted in the census, which determines the representation numbers. But they were assuming that there would only be citizens in the cities, in the communities. Thus, they were laying out how they would be counted for representation. But because you have an open border, because of birthright citizenship, that's why it's so skewed. And that's why the census is kind of a fraud, because there's 30 million people included that are not actually citizens.
That's right. We also know that was changed. The age 21 was changed by Section 1 of the 26th Amendment. Yep. So, but... Okay. To your point, and to the point that we've been making, that look, every day on this show, what is the main point? That the United States of America does not have enough citizens defending what our founders gave us. Just that simple. That's it. It's so simple. It's like really simple. It's amazing that we're making it this hard, but look, it is what it is. We are at the place that we're at, and that's why we do this show, and that's why we're talking about this today.
Well, think about now, Craig, think about this real quick. For people who, let's say you're like, I was a Minnesota Vikings fan growing up. Yeah. I knew every rule in football. And if there was if the referee made a wrong call, I knew the rule. And so did millions of people. So there would be an uprising. And we would collectively scream in the stadiums and around the country, that was pass interference. And there'd be an uproar.
But Ref, you suck.
Right, but yet here we are. The people are violating the plain language of the Constitution, and we're going like, oh, "Is that what the Constitution says?"
Well, no, right, and it's because on purpose, people have not been taught civics. Right, they've not been taught the Constitution. That's why we have the 917 Society. Yep. 917 Society. We'll have them on again soon. That getting constitutions in the hands of middle schoolers. Eighth graders, yeah. That so they can understand the Constitution. It's just that simple. So Section 3 of Amendment 14: no person shall be a senator or representative in Congress or elector of the president and elector of president and vice president, or hold any office, civil or militarily, under the United States or under any state, who have previously taken an oath as a member of Congress or as an officer of the United States, or as a member of any state legislature, or as an executive or judicial officer of any state, to support the Constitution of the United States, shall have engaged in insurrection or rebellion against the same, or given aid or comfort to the enemies thereof, but Congress may, by a vote of 2/3 of each house, remove such disability. Right? So you can't be a senator and a House of Representative member at the same time. Right? And it's interesting when we get to Amendment 27, if we can get there today, we may not. We'll just do it tomorrow. Very interesting. It really, to me, is connected to what it says here in Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. So just kind of keep that in the back of your mind. So
now, Section 3 here. This is the argument. This is what the special counsel Smith, that is trying to possibly bring charges against Trump in D.C. Right. He keeps putting this word insurrection in the possible charges.
Is their go to jail free card?
That's not a disqualifier.
Get out of jail free card. Your go to jail free card.
Trump cannot be president if he is found guilty of insurrection because of the Constitution.
That's right.
That's why
those people, these insurrections. That's a whole. I don't want to go down that hole right now. But the fact is, there's a lot to be discussed there, and many people have discussed it. But when we read the Constitution and the Bill of Rights and the Declaration of Independence before that, and you could see how just kind of the whole point is to take into effect the stuff we're talking about and then run everything that's going on right now, whether it's Trump and the DOJ, whether it's January 6th, what happened there, the election, COVID, your health care, all these things, you got to run them through the filter of the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. It's just that simple. Because if it doesn't pass that test, if it can't make it through the filter, and that's why you have a judicial system, and that's why the Supreme Court is such a huge deal, because that's the final filter judiciously on your rights. So, Section 4. The validity of the public debt of the United States authorized by law, including debts incurred for payments of pensions and bounties for services in suppressing insurrection or rebellion, shall not be questioned. But neither the United States nor any state shall assume or pay any debt or obligation incurred in aid of insurrection or rebellion against the United States, or any claim for the loss or emancipation of any slave, but all such debts, obligations, and claims shall be held illegal and void. Because look at what they were really worried about. They were really worried about the states back then. They weren't all like getting along, and they all had their own viewpoints, and they had to ratify all this stuff. And you have the leaders in each state saying, well, I don't think I like that. And this other state going, well, I think I like that. And then you go to the southern states where slavery was a really, really big deal. And you can see a lot of anger and tension between the states and their leaders. And so the state of California, for example, is not allowed to go to war against the state of Arizona. They can't take their National Guard, if you will, or their state, whatever they have there, and their soldiers and their police officers and sheriffs, and go into Yuma and say, we're taking Yuma. Can't do it, okay? And it goes deeper than that, but that's kind of a simplistic way of looking at states have borders, states have sovereignty, states have the 10th Amendment to the Constitution, states cannot try to take ground in the United States. Then if that happens, then all the other states swarm in and quash it. Okay, so Section 5. The Congress shall have the power to enforce by appropriate legislation the provisions of this article. Okay, well, the Congress shall have the power to enforce by appropriate legislation the provisions of this article. So what is it saying? It says that, well, Congress has the power to uphold the things that are there to protect you and I. Okay, and you've not been seeing that. Okay, the things in the Constitution, we've seen so far multiple things in the Bill of Rights that they're stepping all over them. And it's because they have not taught you what they are. So how would you even know what to defend in the 14th Amendment to the Constitution and in the 5 sections if you don't even know what they are and you've never even read them, never discussed them? And we're going to have more and more people on the show that are much better than myself to explain in great detail what these things mean and how they legally have been broken. So it's interesting times, Eric. You look at this. There's so much. Look how many connections there are to the founders' thoughts. If they were here today, it's like they're writing about a lot of stuff that's going on today.
Well, the founders, and we said this earlier, and I think just like everything has some type of flaw in it. When they were writing this, they were they had defeated the British. They were this new group of united patriots, and they were going to set up this really great nation, and they didn't really consider fully how a Marxist or a progressive or someone could come in and try to twist their words. So they should have probably been more exhaustive in their language, more gotcha. What if someone tries to add a little more safety guard, because they used plain language because they thought everybody would agree because they were all on the same page.
Well, let's think about that for a second. Let's connect it to Scripture.
Yep.
let's pick a subject. Homosexuality. Okay, let's talk about that just real quick. Scripture. Don't you wish that there was more in-depth conversation in Scripture, specifically spelling out things in more plain language, so we can show just how bad, how you should not do that, or abortion. They didn't think about that. They weren't thinking about someone aborting their baby. Heck, many babies died during pregnancy back then. So we could even go to Scripture and look at, boy, I wish that there was some more plain language on things. But part of the assumption is, in my opinion, is that people have a responsibility to do the right thing and to understand what is. I believe in the saying, let's wait to see what comes naturally. All right. And here's a case in point that where it's working against us. These 15, 16-year-old young Americans out there are actually rebelling against the United States of America and the constitutional rights, while you have somebody that is been naturalized in this country, and they are staunch supporters of America. That's because all the people that were in the founding of this country were like naturalized citizens. They came from oppressive scenarios and they understood what was happening in real time, and they were very, very patriotic. We've had them on this show. You compare that in contrast to an American second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth generation person who's been here, their family, they've been here and they're born into it. They don't have to take an oath. They don't have to really do anything. They just inherit, not because they worked for anything. They inherited all these things that we're talking about on the show with the Constitution and the Bill of Rights and the Declaration of Independence before that. And they just inherited it. There's nothing in them. They're lazy about it. They don't care. They think it's just all happens naturally. And wow, I deserve something because I was born. And so I think that's the difference, Eric, of the people then. They were all like naturalized citizens that come into today. And that's why you see a difference with the people running across the border. You see a lot of people from Mexico and other countries that come in, get jobs, never assimilate, take the money and send it to South America and all over the world now, quite frankly, Mexico. And they never really care. They love what the United States can give them, but they don't love the United States.
Yeah, when we were... Carol and I were we were at a restaurant, and I was thinking about this, and it happened to be the waiter came up, and he said his name was Jose. It was a Mexican restaurant, and it's probably a 50-year-old guy, and really jovial and happy. And I said, "Oh, how's your day going?" Great. And he said, "I love America." Think about it. This is how the conversation went. I didn't initiate it. I just wanted to have dinner with my wife. I love America. I said, "Well, great. So do I. Why do you love America?" He goes, "Because my family and I come here and you guys give us free stuff, free college, free medical. My mother just came up and you put her on Social Security and she never worked here. But when we're all done, we're going to go back to our ranch in Mexico. So my kids go to school for free, college for free. And when they're all set up, we're going to pack up and go back home." I'm like, I cannot believe this is like a Saturday Night SNL skit, because I'm like, you're not saying this to me. This is my worst nightmare coming out of your mouth.
Well, think of what the point of Ellis Island was. Ellis Island, which I had many family members on my mother's side come through, and it was to filter people. What are you doing here? Why are you here? Are you escaping from somewhere that you can't go back, so we won't send you back because you'll be killed? Are you just coming here to leech off the system? Have you educated? Do you have any diseases? Have you been vaccinated against anything? Whatever. What are you a criminal? Whatever these things are, and it was a filter. But the main thing to look, my family, I'm half Italian, and they were in New York. They were called WAPs. Obviously, a very disparaging name, but without papers. Okay. And they were called WAPs. And then you had the Irish, and you broke down to, you have the Little Italy. You have all these areas, and they were all kind of, in a sense, segregated into their areas by their culture. And, but the super majority of them including in my own family, the main thing is they were told to assimilate in this country, to love America, to learn English. It's okay to know another language. I have family members that know 5 languages, 6 languages, not uncommon if you come from Europe. But you must love America, and you must take, and again, any of those that became naturalized, they take an oath. That is why we're pushing so heavy. That's why I believe so much in American. And I've held this up quite a bit today because the citizen oath is paramount. That we re-up what we believe it is to be an American, and that the supermajority of people in this country were born in this country, though it seems to be less every day. And we need to we have that love of country like a naturalized citizen has. And that's the way our founders were. They had a love of country because they fought for it, and they had the same feel that a current naturalized citizen has who takes an oath. So like we have up there, you go to AmericaICan.com, you sign the oath, you can buy a beautiful plaque. You don't have to, but you can get a beautiful etched plaque with the laser etched with your name on it. There's a few different kinds to choose from, and it has your signature on it. They're not expensive, but if you can't do it, don't do it. Just sign the oath. Get engaged, okay? And then we have going after all the candidates and all the politicians as well. They need to do it. We're connecting those dots. We're drawing lines between the citizen and the government leaders who are there. So, okay, so where are we at? Now we're going to, I think we were just in 14. Now let's go to 15, Section 1. February 26, 1869, ratified February 3rd, 1870. Do we need to go to break at all? We got about 14 minutes left. What do we need to do? We just keep rolling.
We'll probably keep rolling because it'd be tough to get through this already.
Yeah, there's no way we're going to get through all 27, right. But we'll get where we can. So,
yeah. And we're having too much fun. Why would we want to leave?
Folks, yes.
We're at the party. This is the party. Why would we want to go anywhere?
I don't know what else you could listen to more than this or watch today, other than if you had the Bible open, you're reading from that, because this is the information. I've always said, in my opinion, that the most important documents ever written are the Holy Bible, okay, and then the Constitution, Declaration of Independence, the Bill of Rights. They're not in that order, I know, but those are extremely important. And before that, the Federalist Papers, because that's what also started this. There's a lot of things that have happened over time that allow us to, as pathetic as things are going in this country right now, we're still not France. Okay, but we could get there just by not paying attention. So here we go. What are we at, 15? Yep, 15. Passed by Congress February 26, 1869. Ratified February 3rd, 1870. Section 1, the right of citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of race, color, or previous condition of servitude. It's great. Section 2, the Congress shall have the power to enforce this article by appropriate legislation. Once again, Congress's job is to help protect your constitutional rights. And the same as your sheriff, by the way, and your constable. Fact. So Amendment 16, passed by Congress July 2nd, 1909, ratified February 3rd, 1913. Note, Article 1, Section 9 of the Constitution was modified by Amendment 16. The Congress shall have power to lay and collect taxes on incomes from whatever source derived, without apportionment among the several states, and without regard to any census or enumeration. Well, I lean back in my chair and think, wow, they have really learned how to exercise that amendment, haven't they? Let's read it one more time.
Woodrow Wilson, when you think of him, because the hyper-progressive Barack Obama,
absolutely,
devotee, this is when the U.S. started to morph into this confusing constitutional republic, socialistic, public-private partnership mess. Because this amendment.
That's right. The Congress shall have power to lay and collect taxes on incomes from whatever source derived, without appointment among the several states, and without regard to any census or enumeration. So there's good news there and there's bad news there. What's the good news? It means that you, me, we the people have the ability to vote legislators into office to pass bills and to pass laws. that can remove the taxes as well, reduce the taxes. I think right now, I think this last couple of weeks in the state of Texas, that used to be its own nation, you have the governor there is out there just so excited and spreading his message that just signed the highest property tax reduction into law in the history of Texas. Okay, well, good, right? Taxation, we are way overtaxed, double, triple, quadruple taxed. We're taxed everywhere we go. So they've used this a very short but powerful amendment to just make an absolute nanny state where the government is taxing us and taking that money, empowering things that aren't good, like a Fauci, for example. I mean, Fauci in his position, who works for you and I, and most of you, 99% of us had no idea he even existed until COVID, makes more money than the president of the United States. And he works for the government. So the argument would be, why would anybody in the government make more money than the president of the United States? Why? It's because that's why the 27th Amendment, folks, when we read that, that's going to be very, very interesting. And we don't just read it, we're going to discuss it because it connects us. It's a wild, interesting amendment. It took a very, very, very long time. And again, it's connected to this as well. You'll see that they were geniuses, but why did it take so long? And then what can we use these amendments for to help us today? Okay. So where are we at?
Try to picture how different the country was before the government could lay and collect taxes from any source.
Right.
Well, you kept 100% of your paycheck because there wasn't even Social Security in place. Whatever you made, you kept.
What has to change, I think the number one thing, if we want to go after a tax to get rid of, to me, it is the property tax. The weaponization of the property tax. You never get to own your property. Never. There's always a tax, and it never goes away, and it seems to always go up. And that you could have your property paid off. For 20 years, it could have been paid off, and you don't pay your taxes, they can come take your property. That, to me, it's horrible when you say, people, hey, I paid off my house. Well, you paid off the structure, but you have not paid off the land.
Yes, because
you may not have a loan on the land, but you don't ever pay off your land. You could be in rural America that doesn't even have a city fire department. That all you have is a county sheriff. You don't have any of the sewer systems. You're on a septic system, and you don't have cable. You've got nothing, and you still have property tax.
Look at the possible nefariousness of that ability to increase your property taxes, because, Lord forbid, if 100 years from now the generations decide to give in, which we don't think they're going to, but they could say, for the sake of Marxism in the communities, we're going to triple the property taxes. Right. Well, if you're on fixed income and you can't pay those because they can levy the taxes,
sure,
they could do it, then you would lose your house.
Hey, there's people out there right now that have lost their home in the past. They lost their properties because they couldn't pay property tax.
Yep.
So what's the thing? So, okay, well, if you have to have a tax, make it $1. If you've been in your home or certain thing for a certain amount of time, they've got to have a way to, here's this word, progressively reduce the tax that you have to pay. And so, because look at all the other taxes there are. They're everywhere. But because, like it just said, we just read, they can do it wherever and whenever they want. So what does it come back to? It comes back to the only people who can raise your taxes are the ones that you vote into office. Interesting. I mean, really think how interesting that is. The only people that can raise your taxes are the ones you vote into office. What if I said this about your job? What if you had the power to place and vote in your own boss? right? Someone that is higher up on the totem pole at work. If you had the power to do that, and they led and set rules and they did things to help make your job better, what if you had the power to do that? Okay, well, that would make you their boss, right? In a sense, well, not necessarily. It would give you a tremendous amount of power to place them there, but they have power to set rules that and how much you pay and how much what vacation you have and all that, right? So, and I'm trying to draw a line there because it's not a perfect scenario to compare it to, but the analogy is real that the power that we have to place people in above us, okay, in a sense, to set the rules, okay, we put into office. That means how much money we make, meaning how much money we keep. If I'm keeping more money, then I've got to raise, right? Well, how would it be wild if you could just figure out a way to put people in position where you work and give yourself a raise? Well, you can do that in this republic if you do your job. Simple. So it always comes back. It's always going to go back to the people. Anything you're worried about comes back to the people. Anything that we say that they've done to us is because of the people. Anything that's good is because of the people. Everything that's bad is because of the people. It's always about the people. The people. The largest words on the page, the Constitution, right? So that it's so simple. It's up to us, folks. And that's why we're going to unite. That's why we have AmericaICan.com. That's why we have the oath. And then we got some cool hats coming, cool shirts, paraphernalia, bumper stickers, all that kind of stuff, because it's very important that people know that you're an American and you're proud of it. So, okay, where are we at? We are at, 17 now?
17, yep.
Okay, passed by Congress. What time we have here? We got about 3 minutes. Passed by Congress. May 13th, 1912, ratified April 8th, 1913. Note, Article 1, Section 3 of the Constitution was modified by the 17th Amendment. The Senate of the United States shall be composed of 2 senators from each state, elected by the people thereof for 6 years, and each senator shall have 1 vote. The electors in each state shall have the qualifications requisite for electors of the most numerous branch of the state legislators. When vacancies happen in the representation of any state in the Senate, the executive authority of such state shall issue writs of election to fill such vacancies, provided that the legislator of any state may empower the executive thereof to make temporary appointments until the people fill the vacancies by election, as the legislature may direct. This amendment shall not be so construed as to affect the election or term of any senator chosen before it becomes valid as part of the Constitution. So you've seen that happen many times. You know, somebody passes away, somebody steps down, somebody's removed, and then boom, somebody's temporarily put there to ride out the rest of their term, or they have a special election. So I think that one's straightforward. And you've seen it happen many times. And it's, folks, it's we're going to pause there. We're going to start on 18 tomorrow, because it's really important that you go to AmericaICan.com. It's very, very important that you go there, because all the things that we're talking about and we're educating ourselves on, reminding ourselves, some of you may have read this and you just forget, right? And we're not going to be perfect reading it. And there's things that we just don't understand. And there's words there sometimes like, my gosh, when I read it in my head, not out loud, I think I know what it sounds like, but then I say it, I'm like, I can barely say the word. So look, not everything is simple to understand, but we have got to go over it. And there will be people chime in. There's scholars that watch this show. They'll be on this show that will break it down even more. But let's just do a basic. I would rather fumble through scripture than not read scripture at all. I'd rather just be able to read a piece of scripture, not understand it, but have read it, because I will, as I keep reading, I can understand more, and I can understand more, and I can understand more, and then I have a better understanding. I'm kind of seizing the skill. It's the same thing with the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, and the Bill of Rights. It's the same thing. You've got to read it. And so that's what we're going to do here. And again, go to AmericaICan.com. You want to sign the oath. I've showed it to you multiple times. You can see one back there on the wall. That's the candidate oath. That is for the candidate. And those people are going to get a lapel pin when they sign. You can get one as well. And hats and stickers. And one day we'll see a NASCAR going around the track. The American NASCAR. Burning all them fossil fuels. Okay. Letters to Trump.
Oh, that's right. Oh, yeah, I forgot.
Letters to Trump.
All right.
The music was rolling. But no. We promise, folks.
You have to do two of them, you promised.
I do. Thank you for reminding me. You're right.
All right.
Okay, my God, there's a lot of Ronald Reagan ones. I mean, Ronald Reagan really liked Trump. I mean, it's obvious because there's multiple. Okay, so here we are. This is the one I'm going to read right now. If you have one at home, open it up and follow along. But if you don't, it's $100. You don't have to buy it. We're going to read it right here. Don't worry about it. Okay, see if I can get this where I can read it. Great picture of the cowboy, Ronald Reagan. Okay, this is the White House on letterhead, February 23rd, 1988. Dear Mr. Trump, Dwayne, Andreas, and Jack Myers have told me of your commendable role in supporting the Foundation for the Commemoration of the United States Constitution. I want you to know that by serving on the Foundation's Executive Council, you do more than lend added importance to our cause. Because of your leadership position in the private sector, you have the opportunity to influence the fundamental understanding of and regard for the document that guides, protects, and preserves our nation. I can think of few more important goals in assuring that all Americans, especially young people, learn the principles and values of our Constitution, its vulnerability if not safeguarded, its durability if maintained. Please accept my heartfelt thanks and my encouragement for setting an example and performing a service that will benefit the country for generations to come. Sincerely, Ronald Reagan. Now, doesn't that make you feel good, folks, that right here on the show, you're not wasting your time? Yes, I wear my hat and I've got the Flat Earth Society globe up there. It's not really a globe. It's like it's the earth. And it has, I got my Don't Tread on Me flag and the U.S. flag. And the Truth is Not Hate Speech because the First Amendment, the power of that, the American logo. And that's actually one of the bumper stickers. That's why we're here. And, you know, we have the 917 Society, Joni Bryan and that group doing what? Doing exactly what Ronald Reagan said and was praising Donald Trump for, teaching the youth about the Constitution. That's so powerful. It just doesn't make you feel good that you're not wasting your time watching a show where they're just bloviating and getting you upset. We'll see you tomorrow. We're going to get mad again. It's all about being mad, folks. Not about what can we do about it, not about where we can go, not about what is going to fix and save the Republic. Okay, like Eric said, we have another one. Let's see who it is. Just so you know, every page I turn, it's the first time for me. I purposely did not read this book. It's not like I read through all this and then go back. I have no idea what's on the next page. It's exciting, isn't it? Okay, here we go. So page 39, we're going to go to page 40. Oh, it's beautiful pictures of murals. And then, okay, Kirk Douglas, the late Kirk Douglas. Here we go, right here. You remember him, right? He used to go on Johnny Carson, I think it was, and do push-ups and all that. He was in really good shape, lived to be very, very old. And kind of the old guard of the Hollywood back when it was much more conservative Christian. So Kirk Douglas, January 26, 1988. Dear Donald, being with you, things happen often and fast! Exclamation point. I enjoyed it, and I really thank you for your hospitality and your wonderful cooperation. You and your wife are delightful people. I look forward to seeing you again. By the way, my son, Michael, won the Golden Globe Award for Best Performance in Wall Street. Oh, greed's good. You remember that quote? Greed's good. Wall Street is, now on his way to Tokyo. Maybe one of these days soon we'll all get together for an evening. Thank you, Kirk Douglas. January 26, 1988. So, folks, and next time we're going to read, who's it going to be? Wait a minute. Leona Helmsley. That should be interesting. So there you have it, folks. Thank you so much Eric Thompson, producer extraordinaire. Another show in the books. Share it with your friends, folks. Share it with your friends. It's about you. It's about me. It's about us. It's about America. It's about American. Together we will win. Do not be afraid. Speak your mind in love and in liberty everywhere you go, and do not fear those who want to suppress you from doing that. God bless you, and know He's on your side. I promise you. We'll see you tomorrow.